actually act as a role model for other exchanges to follow. There were 22 exchanges in India by that time. There was Bombay Stock Exchange, which was set up in 1875, but Delhi, Ahmedabad, Calcutta, all were pretty close to Bombay Stock Exchange in terms of their number of years of existence. And then each city, which became larger politically or otherwise, was asking for a new exchange. It was a time of floor-based exchanges. I have seen exchanges which were smaller than this hall. And there were larger exchanges like Calcutta or Mumbai, which used to have larger halls, but they were floor-based exchanges, and people used to trade with hand signals. And in that context, after Harshad Mehta scam, a 5-member team was created by IDBI to set up National Stock Exchange, which will provide technology and other things to other exchanges as a model exchange. And that's how we were thinking about it. Before that, Pherwani Committee had recommended setting up of National Stock Exchange, a model exchange. And since the origin of the Harshad Mehta scandal was in debt market, we thought we'll start with reforming the debt market, and that's how the first market that was set up in 1994 or started in 1994 at NSE was actually wholesale debt market, which is interbank markets from where Harshad Mehta used to borrow money without brokers, because brokers used to take out money, and that's why RBI had created new regulations that you should not have brokers. And when the exchange came up, we had to have brokers. And that's how brokers were again introduced. It started somewhere, I think April or May of 1994. And then after 2 months, Dr. Manmohan Singh, who used to be the finance minister at that time, he gave time to inaugurate the exchange. So we actually inaugurated the wholesale debt market of NSE 2 months after it started functioning. And those were the days of newer things, newer reforms. Within few months, my boss, Dr. R.H. Patil, I used to work for NSE those days, and I came from IDBI as a part of 5-member team under Dr. Patil to set up NSE. And he announced that we will now have November 3, 1994 would be the date to start equities market. And we were all surprised that we were not ready, but he said, no, I have to start this, and whatever is required, you have to do. And that's how on November 3, 1994, it was a Diwali day. And Diwali is an interesting day in the sense that it's Amavasya. Usually you don't start anything new on an Amavasya day. But Diwali being the most auspicious occasion in Hindu calendar, Dr. Patil said, no, we will do it on that day. And whatever is compulsions, I'm still not been able to fathom that he had to do it on that day. But we started on that particular day, electronic stock market trading. And most people, all the experts were of the opinion that a stock exchange which is automated, set up by bureaucrats, operated by bureaucrats, without any brokers taking decisions, is destined to fail. And within 11 months of starting off National Stock Exchange, it became larger than any exchange in India, only 11 months. And that was, in a way, a proof of concept in retrospect for newer ideas, but also a proof of concept for the world of the power of automation. World had not seen automation of stock exchanges the way we did without our knowledge. America used to have an exchange called NASDAQ, which used to have screens, and we used to think sitting in India that they actually match on screen, because they used to have screens and you see the trades, you see the codes, and you thought that if you will place orders on those screens and then it'll go and match. But it was not happening in America that way. Every dealer, every broker in America used to place orders on NASDAQ, and those orders will only be displayed. If you have to trade, you have to actually phone each other. But many people in India were not aware of that. And so sometimes you make decisions based on perceived information which can be wrong, but that perceived information actually helped us create the first successful automated, fully screen-based order matching system in the world. Before us, Vancouver, which is a very small exchange, it's like a toy exchange in Canada, Caracas Stock Exchange, again a toy exchange, hardly any trades used to happen. They had tried to automate, and that software was bought by NSE, they set up, and it became a rage. After that, London, New York, Chicago, Japan, everyone automated after the NSE, and in quick succession, BSE automation became successful in India. In fact, it was also the harbinger of India's IT prowess. 1992-93 is when we started setting up NSE automation of the market across the nation using satellite telecommunications, because the phone lines used to take 5 years to come to your house, you might recall. And we had to give screen-based trading, which is very fast, otherwise people lose interest. So we had to use satellite telecommunications. Nowhere in the world such an experiment was successful. Before us, UK had started a platform called Taurus, London Stock Exchange. They had spent £1 billion in those days in 1988 to 90, and they had failed miserably in automating their exchange. And that success of our stock market automation, before that, 1 year before that, we had also automated our railway reservation system across the country. These two successes is what made India count the TCS, which implemented NSA systems. BSE systems were implemented by CMC. And then Infosys and other players started getting counted in the rest of the world. When Y2K came, that experience of setting up large nationwide systems is what got the Indian IT companies get that they used to actually bring all their potential customers to watch and see how NSE was working, just to impress those people that Indians can actually do this kind of automation. That's how when Y2K came, Indian IT got a leg up. But these were all predecessors to India's sort of prowess. Wipro, many of them used to work for NSE, and that's where basically why I'm recounting this times is because India in last 30 years has gained so much of confidence, largely out of its IT prowess, and the pioneers of that framework was India's capital markets. It brought huge amount of confidence into the investing public. I recall there were probably close to less than 5 million or 50 lakh investors in 1994. Our market capitalization was around less than $100 billion. By 2000, it was $250 billion. Today, it is $3.5 trillion. We are now amongst the top 4. If you take Hong Kong as a part of China, we are now the top 4 markets in the world in terms of market capitalization. Market capitalization is basically the wealth that is represented by stock markets in terms of the wealth that those companies represent. You just add them up, and $3.5 trillion is actually higher than India's GDP today, and it's almost 110% of our GDP, which itself is a great achievement for a country with $2,000 per capita income on annual basis. No country in the world with $2,000 per capita income is actually having that kind of vibrant market. And that's what the achievement of the LC Gupta committee is, the ideas of LC Gupta is. And that is the context with which in 1994, November, NSE became larger than BSE and other exchanges. And that time, my boss, Dr. R.H. Patil, told me that now you stop worrying about equities. You have done a good job in equities and IT for NSE, but now you set up derivatives market. And that was again in the context of frequent failures of settlements in Indian stock markets. There was already a large default that had happened in 1995 at BSE, which was called MS Shoes scandal, if some of you may recall. And in 1995 itself, in early part of 95, there was a Barings Bank fiasco in Singapore Exchange on Nick Leeson. And so that time Warren Buffett had said that the derivatives are weapons of mass destruction. And in that context, Dr. Patil, with his own characteristic style, he was another saint like Dr. L.C. Gupta, that they did not get worried about conventional wisdom. They could think 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ahead. And he said that somewhere along the line, what is happening in India, all the frequent failures of settlement processes, consequent losses of money by the investors, and the lack of confidence in Indian stock market by investors is because we are mixing up the futures market, the Vaida Bazaar, with the spot market or Rokda Bazaar. And he had a very clear idea that we need to separate them. You cannot be playing hockey and cricket together in the same field at the same time. You have to separate hockey and separate cricket, then only you will be able to enjoy the game, and the rules and regulations of both will be applicable as they are required. And that is how he said, now you work on derivatives. In 1995, December, I wrote to SEBI the first letter to Mr. O.P. Gehrotra. We used to be the senior executive director of SEBI, saying that now we want to set up the derivatives market. And immediately I got a call saying, no, but Nick Leeson, have you forgotten in 6 months' time? And I said, no, because of that, now one set of reforms we have conducted